All right, we're going to move on to Lecture 3 from Chapter 5, the skeletal system. Let's start out taking a look at the fetal skull. The fetal skull is large compared to the infant's total body length. Now, instead of having sutures, they have something called fontanelles. These are fibrous membranes that connect the cranial bones, and they allow the brain to continue growing. They don't convert to bone within 2 years after birth. So that's when they actually turn over. As you can see, we've got these little spaces. Remember, there's that soft spot on the skull. And you notice that the features are a little strange. They can almost look alien. Next, we're going to move on to the vertebral column. The vertebral column consists of 24 irregular bones forming a flexible, curved structure extending from the skull to the pelvis that surrounds and protects the spinal cord. It provides attachment for ribs and muscles of the neck and back. Now, there are several different divisions, but as you can see here, we have 7 cervical vertebrae, we have 12 thoracic vertebrae, and we have 5 lumbar vertebrae. Down at the bottom, we have 9 vertebrae fused to form 2 composite bones called the sacrum and the coccyx. Let's take a look at what it looks like. You can see that there is a curve to this vertebral column. Well, the spine has a normal curvature. The primary curvatures are the spinal curvatures of the thoracic and the sacral regions, and that is present from birth. And the secondary curvatures are the spinal curvatures of the cervical and the lumbar regions, and those develop after birth. So if we take a look at this little infant, you can see how it's got a normal curve, and that later on it'll develop all the rest of the curves in order to allow that person to be able to stand and walk and have a great old time. Now, there are some problems that can occur. We can have lordosis, we can have kyphosis, we can have scoliosis, we can have all these different kinds of problems with shifting of the vertebrae. Each vertebrae consists of an anterior body and a posterior vertebral arch that together with the body form the vertebral foramen through which the spinal cord passes, as we can see in this diagram. Now, the top 2 vertebrae in the cervical vertebrae, the first 2, are quite unique because they form the C1 and the C2, which is the atlas and the axis. And these 2 vertebrae are set up such that the head can be able to pivot. Here's what the other cervical vertebrae look like. Here's what the thoracic vertebrae look like. You can see that we got these very large spinous processes, the transfer processes, the body gets bigger. And then as we get down towards the bottom, the body of the vertebrae becomes even bigger. At the very end, we have the sacrum. Now, that's formed by the fusion of 5 vertebrae. Then we have the coccyx, and that's formed by the fusion of 3 to 5 vertebrae, and that depends on genetics. And the tailbone, or remnant of a tail that other vertebrae have, is this coccyx. Next up, we have the bony thorax. It's also called the thoracic cage. It consists of the thoracic vertebrae dorsally, the ribs laterally, and the sternum and costal cartilages anteriorly. It forms a protective cage around the organs of the thoracic cavity and provides support for the shoulder girdles and upper limbs. It consists of the sternum, which is the breastbone, and that lies anterior midline of the thorax. It's a flat bone resulting from the fusion of 3 bones, the manubrium, the body, and the xiphoid process. Now, the ribs, the sides of when we talk about the ribs, we talk about the sides of the thoracic cavity are formed by 12 pairs of ribs that attach posteriorly to the thoracic vertebrae and curve inferiorly toward the anterior body surface. The superior 7 pairs of ribs are called true ribs. They attach directly to the sternum via individual costal cartilages. The lower 5 pairs of ribs are called false ribs. They either attach indirectly to the sternum or lack a sternal attachment entirely, as we can see in this diagram. Now this is going to finish up Lecture 3 of Chapter 5, the skeletal system. Thank you now.